Members, I'm used to this new system here. Members, we are quorate and the time has come to start the meeting, so I'd like to welcome you all here tonight for City Community Services and Culture Committee. I would like to start off by advising you that the meeting will be recorded and streamed live in the City of Adelaide website. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make at the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia. I would like to acknowledge, the City of Adelaide acknowledges that the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains are the traditional custodians of the land in which we meet today. We acknowledge and honour their spiritual and cultural stewardship of this country and recognise their deep and enduring relationship to its lands, waters, the sky and all living things. We pay our respects to Kaurna elders past and present and recognise the important role of emerging leaders in sustaining and strengthening culture. So that's our new acknowledgement of country. So I think it's a very good one. Are there any apologies or leave of absence? Yes. Councillor Snape, okay. And that's it? Yep. And can I now seek a mover and seconder for the minutes? Moved by Councillor Marr, seconded by Lord Mayor. Those in favour? Those against? Declare it carried. Are there any conflicts of interest for tonight's agenda? Yeah, Councillor Freeman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm declaring a general conflict with item 7.1, the Park Safe Review, due to its involvement with DIT in the process, which is where I work.
Thank you. Councillor Marr.
I will declare a general conflict for the same item as it relates to on-road vehicle compliance, and I have a business operation as a rideshare driver.
Was that 7.1? Both of you? Oh, and just a reminder, it's a workshop, so I'm assuming... That's the report? Okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Yep, okay. Thank you very much. Okay, there are no deputations, and now we move to the workshop, which is about the draft parklands leasing and licensing policy. And I'd ask whether you can kick us off.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On the 7th of October, Administration workshop with you a series of guiding principles to inform the basis of an update to the Adelaide Parklands leasing and licensing policy, which was last adopted 10 years ago in 2016. We heard that there was general support for guiding principles, a need to differentiate between community organisations and educational institutions, and a need for council members to understand the impact on lessees and licensees of the proposed fees changes. So tonight's workshop demonstrates some of those impacts, and I'll hand over to Jennifer Kalionis to take you through the workshop slides in terms of key outlines before we open to questions and comments.
Thank you. Through the Chair, as Jo's outlined, we'll take the workshop slides as read, but highlight the following. Today, we present for your feedback our proposed approaches to the need to differentiate organisation types, for example, education versus community, considerations of capacity to pay and impacts on smaller organisations, clarity on how lessee contributions to assets are reflected in fees, and the importance of stewardship. Just take you through this slide deck here. The policy deals with both commercial and non-commercial lease and licence agreements. Non-commercial lease and licence agreements represent 1/3 of all parklands lease and licence income. Slides 9 through 20 demonstrate the impact of the proposed fees across the lessee and licence categories, and in an effort to address equity and fairness issues raised by council members in previous workshops, we're proposing to introduce a new category of non-commercial lessees and licensees, education non-city based. We're seeking to incentivise community stewardship by exploring opportunity for lessees and licensees to be able to reduce lease and licence fees by delivering measurable community benefits. We'd like your views on these points and anything else in the presentation, and so we're ready to take your questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Freeman.
Yeah, I did want to ask about subletting, and I know in the summary slide earlier it said that that would be addressed in the policy. Is that not subject of today's workshop? You can go ahead and ask about that. That's okay? Okay, yeah. Thanks. So it's something I raised in the most recent Caterpillar as well, and there's only so many leases in the parklands, and we have so many community uses that are screaming for space in this city, and having the opportunity to have a sub-lease from the lessee I think would be a really great opportunity, and I note that, yeah, so that's going to be included in the policy update, but I did just want to ask about, through what you heard, I mean, what feedback was there about that? Is it a barrier at the moment? Do people even know that that's an option for them to approach a leaseholder and say, hey, can we come in for an event? What sort of feedback are we hearing about the demand?
Thanks for the question, and through you, Chair. We haven't been out to the public broadly on this yet, but I note your question and remember the conversation in Caterpillar. The leases do encourage subletting and hire agreements. We have also inbuilt into there the requirement, if we choose to use it, to actually discuss with the lessee and ask them to produce a register of the inquiries that they've received over the course of a year. We can interrogate the percentage of those that have been successful and hired out, and also put things in place to try and increase that percentage if and when we needed to do that as well. So, yeah, we are aware of some of the shortage and trying to address that through the policy and through the lease.
Just a follow-up question. So when someone approaches a lessee and hires out the space, so they do pay them effectively for that use, so there is a financial incentive for subletting at the moment? Yep, okay, thank you.
Councillor Marr. I'm just, we're in a workshop, so I'm just going to take questions and comments just so we can give some feedback to the staff.
A similar question with licences where you have a right of first use. I don't want to give the specific example in the open forum, but we've got a parkland which has a licence, and then we have a rival sports team who would also like to use the area, who may not be given the opportunity to do so, being refused the opportunity to do so on the basis of right of first use, but then it's not being used by anybody. So how do we manage that?
I think there's a couple of things. Firstly, we heard from you in the last workshop that you supported an EOI process for transparency, so everyone effectively gets the same opportunity, and that the council here, if there are any exemptions to that EOI policy, makes the call on that. So that's the first piece that we heard. When we were here at last workshop, we were saying that we thought there were some opportunities to reduce administration in that space, but we heard loudly and clearly that council enjoyed the EOI process for fairness and transparency. The second piece is that we will, in this area, what we're doing is effectively reducing lease and licence fees based on measurable community post the year of implementation. So not effectively give it up front and on a whim, but effectively say show us and demonstrate that in that space. The other bit that you'll find in the lease and licence agreements, if people formally sublet their space, is that they need to provide us all the details around that, so we can make sure that there's actually transparency and fairness in that subletting arrangement, and it has to be approved by council in that sort of area. So we think there are a number of levers for us to be able to support. The other option is not only effectively in a formal relationship, but is also in hire, which is more ad hoc in terms of that space.
Is that new?
Which part of it?
The register of sublease requests.
Sublease requests, no, has been with us for a long period of time and covered in the lease and licence arrangements.
Okay, I might take this one offline then.
Thank you. Any other further questions or discussion? Councillor, Deputy Lord Mayor.
I think I read state government, are they on peppercorn leases? Is that being reviewed, and why are they not paying anything and yet other areas are paying?
So the number of peppercorn state government ones will be a range of them, from Adelaide Oval to the Aquatic Centre, so they'll all be major investments that have generally had either a legislative or an investment perspective that comes over them in that space. There are some smaller ones which are either, so the Bureau of Meteorology, all of that then comes to Council to agree to in terms of the policy.
Councillor Freeman.
I just had a couple of comments on the proposed non-commercial licences for non-city based. I think that does seem like a fair proposal. I just want to clarify though, so the city based education / government education. So thank you. If you are a education establishment, let's say Marrickville High, outside of the city, you would fall into the education non-city based category. So that's all education, okay. Maybe it's something that we can explore offline, but I'm interested in public schools that are coming into the city to use our parklands, because maybe they don't actually have the opportunity locally, and so we wouldn't want to disadvantage that opportunity for public schools, personally. But otherwise, I think, generally speaking, having non-city based organisations coming in, it does seem like a fair adjustment to the policy.
Thank you. Any others? Councillor Martin.
Look, I wanted to make a couple of comments if I could, Chair, and I have some notes because it is a very broad proposal that we're looking at, and I would say at the outset that I'm broadly supportive of the whole of the document. I think it's moving in the right direction, and with its companion policies, it will work well. It's the titles and the inclusions which have been referred to by some of the other speakers that I'd like to raise. And the first thing is, I don't think we should be lumping all of the educational institutions in together, in city-based, non-city-based, and talking about capacity to pay and all of those things. Educational bodies in the City of Adelaide are different. There is no doubt that organisations, schools like, say, North Adelaide Primary School are small educational organisations strapped for funds, state government organised. But you couldn't really put in the University of Adelaide or Pulteney College into the same class. They are both gigantic money-making machines which have enormous facilities and capacity to pay. And I would like to see some consideration of that in the definitions here. In respect of some of the tables, there's one related to community organisations, and again it's inclusions, things like alumni clubs. Now, alumni clubs are almost exclusively university, private school based. They are funded, if not hosted completely, by the primary organisation. So there's the university alumni, which uses Park 9 and 10. There's the PAC alumni that use Park 9. They use it often for competition sport, very often paid players, and for competitive sport that brings a result that brings, whether it's prestige or whatever, to an organisation. And so I'm not sure about their inclusion, along with state-based sporting associations. And I raise this in the context of SACA. Now, the South Australian Cricket Association is a state sporting association. It is nevertheless one of the wealthiest in South Australia. I mean, these guys paid what were $4 million, I think, back in 2018 to build their clubhouse. And it's a fine place, it is. It's an enormous dining room and bar and all of that. And they are also part owners of Adelaide Oval Hotel. They are also part owners and profit sharers from all of the dining and alcohol that's sold at the Adelaide Oval. It's a different kind of state sporting association, and quite different to, say, the Women's Touch Football Association of South Australia. Quite different. And so I think we just need to sharpen those definitions that we would bring to this policy. And I'd also say, somewhat gratuitously too, that I do feel some prejudice towards universities, especially because they really don't pay rates, and yet they're enormous consumers of city services. I agree with the indexation of lease and licence fees. I think that's really sensible. On page 17, there are circumstances described where organisations don't pay or pay very little in terms of development costs for buildings. And in those cases, often the ratepayer contributes handsomely to the cost, just as we are doing with 21 West and 27B. And the argument in the paper at 17 is, I'm assuming that the lease fee should be higher because the contribution from the ratepayers for the structure on which the lease is granted is a cost to them. And I think that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. But sadly, in another part of the agenda tonight, we are being asked to approve 27B and 21 West on the basis of the current rates. The leases are in there, whereas I think they should be held over. If we're going to amend this policy soon, I think we're in a state of flux and they ought to be deferred. And finally, at page 24, the stewardship, which has been referred to by Councillor Freeman, I think that's sensational, and I particularly like the reference to homeless people. I think that's important, and that we are just encouraging positive behaviours such as subleasing. And how we do that, of course, is a separate question. But I think it would be really good if we could also take that that approach and quantify it. So we're able to say, you're doing a really good job if you sublease this facility 10 times a year. You're doing a bloody fantastic job if you do it 50. It's that kind of qualification, I think, that would inform the extent to which we reward people, either with fee reductions or some other consideration. But look, on the whole, I think this is going in the right direction. Just a couple of little tweaks, I think, would make a big difference.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Ma. No, I was looking to see if there was anyone else who hadn't spoken first.
Thank you. I have a question about the content of the consultation to occur later. How are we going to split the responses to that? Because I can imagine there'd be quite a positive response from a lot of the community organisations who are going to get a cheaper rate, and there'll be, in theory, a negative response from those who are asking to pay a bit more. How are we going to account for that in the consultation itself?
Absolutely, through the chair. Our Adelaide website allows us to be able to actually take feedback in lots of areas, as you've seen in the report on the other licences, in terms of that, and we will build all of the information together, bring it back to council to do the draft policy that will then go out to consultation. That will take a period of time and then come back through here, but you'll get granularity effectively in the views through that consultation piece of going out to the public. The important piece for us is to get that out for public consultation and then land that, and then that then impacts things like lease and licence fees in the subsequent years, which goes to the previous comment of being able to update that based on a current view. The moment we don't have a current view, we always relate back to the 2016 policy because that's the latest decision we have on the books.
Have we done any, in the production of this report and then the draft, have we done any preliminary, just a quick phone call, hey, what do you think about this, to certain stakeholders, or is this all from us?
No, I think if you have a look at the slide that's on the screen at the moment, you can see that community consultation on this started back in 2022, so it's been a long road home in terms of that sort of space. It's gone a number of ways forward, and we're now sort of down to the final parts of where the policy needs to be to put it out. And there will be people who will love it and people who may not love it as much as others.
Thanks.
Lord Mayor.
Can I just say that I think on the previous slide, some of those well-funded private schools might struggle to complain about the lease on a park, which is, you know, considering the annual fees, this is a term of a Year 12 student, so there's hardly grounds for complaint.
Councillor Freeman.
Just one more, and again echoing what Councillor Martin was saying, I completely agree with you about the city government schools, and I think the buckets of rates in here are right. It may just be the criteria of who falls in which bucket needs to be slightly tweaked. So just to share an anecdote, I was told recently by someone affiliated with Adelaide Botanic High School that they are unable to use our lovely shiny new aquatic centre because they can't afford to. And I thought that was really interesting because this is a city government school right next to it, and they're saying that they don't have access to this new facility. And again, going back to those principles of stewardship and what you're paying if you're making your facility more available to the community or educational institutions, maybe that's something we can look into. I haven't substantiated that, just to be clear, but it was something I intended to raise because I think that's a really missed opportunity, and that's certainly not what we would have intended.
Any further comments or questions? I just wanted to make just ask a question myself. I'm just going to follow on from Councillor Martin's inquiry about SACA, and other clubs that actually make quite an amount of money because they have extremely good quality facilities, and they can actually do some substantial fundraising. But they're not counted as commercial. So what is the line between commercial and non-commercial when we've got the capacity for some places to operate in a way that actually provides a large income from their facilities?
I think what we heard loud and clearly tonight is the lines and definitions we give, effectively, we just need to do some tweaks on that and make sure that we've got the definitions very strong in terms of at what extent does an organisation become a commercial organisation versus effectively a significant state sporting association versus a smaller club or a community. So what I'm hearing is it's heading in the right direction, but get the definitions right in terms of what that looks like.
I mean, I just then also want to say that I think it's a good piece of... Oh, more people?
Can I just ask a question about this slide? Why is CBC so cheap and Adelaide High so expensive? Is it a bigger area?
Space.
A much bigger area? A huge area, I believe.
Adelaide's not huge space. Yeah, that's right. Yes, significant. It's all based on space. This is a licence fee,
So it's all based on effectively the square meterage in terms of the licence fee. So from memory, Adelaide High has both of the ovals all the way to the back, and CBC doesn't have that space in Part 17.
Okay, we finished. I just want to make sure I can make a comment. Oh no.
Yeah, just very briefly, I think one of the things I'm conscious of and very supportive of the direction we're going in is that at times there'll be names that appear in these screens that mask who's actually using these ovals. So, for example, I know that Axara provides space to their ovals for girls AFL for primary schools. A number of those primary schools are public schools coming in from outside the city. So just think, while in general happy with the direction it's going, there's always layers of detail that sits behind here as to exactly who's using these facilities and locations.
Okay. I just wanted to also add that I think that this is a really good piece of work. I particularly like the sort of like social commitment that we're opening up and asking people to think about, and particularly in relation to that, looking at our community facilities, there could be some real scope in some of these clubs to provide spaces that are really quite tight and limited in the CBD itself for people to meet and to have a community-based activity, not just a sporting-based activity. So, yeah, I think with the comments that other people have said, it's moving in the right direction.
okay.
And if that will be the end of our workshop, and now we're moving to Park Safe Review. I gather everyone's had a good chew on this in the briefing. Oh, by the way, thank you, you lot. Yes. Yes, Councillor Marr moves the motion, seconded by Councillor Siebentritt. Do either of you wish to speak?
Unless they were going to introduce the item, I'm happy to speak.
No, they're happy not to speak, aren't you?
No, we're just noting the report. It's a pretty comprehensive report, and I'm very happy with how the Park Safe system is working. The bit that I really like about this is it explains exactly how much human oversight there is. It satisfies that question we had before about the use of AI or the significant lack thereof. And there's really nothing else to add. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? A question? Councillor Couros.
This might be a silly question, but does the vehicle go into the parklands or is it just...
Through your chair, it can. Yes, it can.
Do you go
Not regularly. No. So there has been occasions where we can issue offences because again it's an immediate offence to park on the parklands, but it's not at the moment under regular monitoring.
Okay, any further debate? I'll put it then. Those in favour? Oh, do you want to sum up? No. All those in favour? Against? Declare it carried. Oh, Councillor Kabada, can we take that vote again? You didn't vote. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. Now the next item is Parklands lease consultation findings, and I'll hand once again over to Jo to give an introduction.
Thank you, Chair. This one effectively has come back to you again after public consultation for 3 lease agreements in Part 2, Part 10 and 27B, and granting delegation to the CEO to execute those leases with stakeholders who have been in the parklands collectively for 200 years. So I'll now hand over to Ms Kalionos for any significant sort of updates before opening up to questions, including clarification of the lease fees, I think is important for the members.
Thank you. Through the Chair. This matter was considered by Cattle Tiller on the 23rd of April, and feedback from the board is outlined in paragraph 16 of the report. Notably, the board supported the recommendations and sought clarification on measures to enhance broader community use of the proposed lease facilities, and asked questions in relation to the lease and licence fee structure. The lease and licence fees, as were referred to in the workshop earlier, outlined in each of these contemporary agreements in item 4 of the schedules. And you'll note that once a policy position is reached, there is ability for the fees to be adjusted annually through council's fees and charges process. In each of these leases, the responsibilities of each party under the schedule of maintenance is clear. We're happy to take any questions on these leases.
Any questions? Councillor Martin.
Yes, and my questions through you, Chair, go to the comments a little while ago about entering into new leases when the policy is up for review, and I note the administration's comment about the capacity to adjust. Is that capacity to adjust the substantial adjustment occurring through policy change, or simply the indexation adjustment, which is adopted anyway?
Thank you for the question. That is through the indexation, which is adopted annually. We have been entering into new agreements while the policy has been in progress this time.
And I think it's also fair to say that fees and charges are set on an annual basis. So there's 2 parts of it. There's the fees and charges that's referred to under 4A. So previously it would have referred to the policy back in 2016. So that's been an amendment in these leases that effectively refers now to our fees and charges, our adopted fees and charges annually. So that allows us that flexibility once the policy is adopted to reflect that into these and make them contemporary.
So, just and further to that, and I need to find the page in order to ask the question with some accuracy. Perhaps the administration can help me. Where's the reference to the fees and charges that would apply to, say, Blackfriars under the new policy? page, here it is,
Page 67.
page 22 of mine, 67 of the contract. So the difference between the current licence fee and the proposed annual licence fee, should this policy ultimately be adopted, would be $1,294. Will that be, that is the latter amount, the fee that is adopted by adopting the lease that is recommended as part of this item, or would it be the lower amount of $5,096?
It'll be the lower amount because that's reflected in the current policy until we adopt the new policy, which will then at the next financial year pick up the updated fee in terms of that's mentioned there in terms of that space. So it'll go through, assuming that we don't get the policy through effectively tonight, which I don't think we are, it will reflect, you will give delegation to the CEO to enter into that agreement, and that agreement each year will reference the fees and charges which are done annually. And so that's where we'll pick up the next round of uplift in those fee charges.
That's apart from indexation. Okay, well, you've answered my question. I'm a happy chappy.
And that was the first time, effectively through the chair, that we've had that clause put in to contemporise our leases, to be able to reference everything back to fees and charges.
Oh, well, it's great to see Councillor Martin happy about lease agreements. Councillor Marr.
So to follow on from the previous inquiry, the leaseholder might be signing up with a lower amount. We'll change the policy. They get a new higher amount in the following year. Is there an exit clause if they don't want to pay the higher amount?
I'm sure there'll be an exit clause in there. There's always an exit clause at the end of the periods of time. So if we've got a 15-year lease, there's a chance at every 5, 5 and 5. I'd have to check if there's the only exit piece would be if there was non-compliance for their lease conditions in terms of that space.
Would there be any merit in a release trigger on the basis of the change of fees? Because we don't want to lock someone in at a lower rate and then make them pay more.
I don't think what we're seeing from the rates here is so substantially different in terms of those organisations that couldn't effectively see that as a good opportunity in terms of that space. So we don't see any major risk.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Councillor Freeman.
Just quickly, so the consultation that's occurred for these leases, were they aware that the Parklands leasing policy was being reviewed, so they know, they may have an inkling that rates may change? Okay, that's all, thank you.
Okay, would somebody like to move the motion? Moved by Lord Mayor, seconded by Councillor Martin. Lord Mayor, would you like to speak? Councillor Martin?
I'm still happy.
All right. How long will this last? Okay, any debate? All right, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? I declare it carried unanimously. Did Councillor Bartis vote there? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Unfortunately, members, you've been way too efficient through this committee this evening.
We haven't finished, haven't closed yet. There are no, excuse me everyone, we haven't finished yet. There are no reports for noting. And now I would like to close the Community Service Committee meeting. And now the CEO can make his announcement.
With my apologies, members, the next committee starts at 8 p.m, so there's an opportunity to make yourself a cup of tea, have some dessert. I think I saw some cannoli there.
Thank you for taking the time to come to this committee.
Evening all. I declare the meeting of the City... Wait a minute, I've got the wrong one. The City Planning and Development and Business Affairs Committee open and advise that this meeting will be recorded and streamed live to the City of Adelaide website. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and any contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia. The City of Adelaide acknowledges the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains as the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. We acknowledge and honour their spiritual and cultural stewardship of this country and recognise their deep and enduring relationship with its land, waters, the sky and all living things. We pay our respects to Kaurna elders past and present and recognise the important role of emerging leaders in sustaining and strengthening culture. Right. We have apologies, Councillor Abrahimzadeh and Councillor Snape. I now, confirmation of the minutes of the 7th of April, I now seek a mover and seconder. I think I saw the Lord Mayor and Councillor Martin seconded. All in favour? Carried. Do any councillors have conflict of interest? No. We have no deputations, no workshops, no reports for recommendation to council, reports for noting.
Moved. Exclusion.
Don't hurry me, Lord Mayor. Exclusion of the public. There are 2 items for consideration in confidence. I now seek a mover and seconder to consider 10.1 property strategy update. Councillor Martin, Lord Mayor, all in favour? Carried. Right. Okay.